On a day like today, perhaps a very special occasion for many, you may want to grab a nice bottle of wine for your special occasion, or simply just chill or lounge with family and friends. But do you even consider how the wine is packaged or why the corks are different? Well, in our previous video, we spoke about microbes and the fact that they are extremely important in our daily lives, including special occasions and activities that suit our lifestyle. Their value and usefulness in the production of wine is no exception. What may be the most important microbiological event? One that has had great impact upon the culture and society is the domestication of yeast used by bakers and brewers. Saccharomyces cerevisiae is the scientific name for what we refer to as sugar fungus that makes beer and wine. So let's dive into some history. The earliest record of the use of yeast comes from Persia, modern Iran, where archeologists have found the remains of grapes and wine preservatives in pottery vessels more than 7,000 years old. In fact, Saccharomyces is naturally found on grapes, which can actually begin the fermentation process while on the vine. Now, the key process of producing alcoholic beverages is fermentation, which uses the biological process known as respiration to get it done. Now, once the grapes reach the winery, they get crushed inside the crusher and there is a perforated rotating drum. Now, the holes in the drum allow the juice and the skins of the grapes to pass through, but keep the stems inside the drum. Now, the crushed grapes and juice are called must. When the yeast first hits the must, the concentrations of glucose, sugar, they're very high. So it is through diffusion that the glucose actually gets to the yeast. Now, in fact, it keeps entering the yeast as long as there is glucose in the solution. Now, as each glucose molecule gets into the yeast, it is broken down in a 10-step process that we call glycolysis. The product of glycolysis is a 3-carbon sugar, and this is known as pyruvate, and there are 2 of them. And there's also some ATP, which supplies energy to the yeast, and this allows it to multiply. The 2 pyruvates are then converted by the yeast into carbon dioxide and ethanol, which is the alcohol in wine. Now, once this fermentation process is completed, red wines are sent to the press to separate the skins from the wine, and the red wines are then filtered to remove the yeast. White wines are allowed to settle and are filtered to remove the yeast. Now, once the yeast are removed, the wines are stored in either stainless steel storage, tanks, or even oak barrels. And oak gives many wine a characteristic flavor, depending on the type of wine. Now, in some red wines, a second type of fermentation called malolactic fermentation, which is also known as MLF, is undertaken. And while in storage, and it is very crucial and microbiologically stabilize most red wines. Now, in malolactic fermentation, the winemaker will add bacteria to the wine that breaks down the malic acid and change it into lactic acid, because malic acid is a byproduct of aerobic metabolism and can be a carbon source for yeast and bacterial growth, which causes spoilage and, of course, unwanted flavors. Now, the bacterium that is usually added is known as Oenococcus oeni, which is a member of the lactic acid bacteria family, and is the main bacterium responsible for conducting MLF due to its ability to survive in very harsh conditions of wine, which involves high alcohol, low pH, and low nutrients, and its production of desirable wine sensory attributes. Now, the aging process can be anywhere from 3 months to 3 years. Now, after the wine has aged sufficiently, as determined by the winemaker, it is time to bottle and package it for sale. making an ordinary day very special for those who have the luxury of popping a bottle. Now, there's actually a reason that some wine is sealed with screw caps and cork. The screw caps are used to seal in freshness at the time of bottling, which is best for light to medium-bodied stainless aged wines. Now, the cork cover is best for wines that benefit from aging over time, such as oak-aged wines and desserts, etc. Now, cheers to you. Now you know why the caps are different. Thank you so much for listening. May you enjoy your special day. Take care. Cheers.